Linda McEvan, Labour MEP for Yorkshire and the Humber, a vote at the committee stage on what they call medical devices here. So things like breast implants. What differences, if these proposals eventually go through into European law, what differences would they make to women in Britain?
Well, people remember the massive scandal around the PIP implants, where we had a company in France making implants out of industrial silicone. And we found a lot of loopholes in the law. One of the loopholes, for example, was that when the company was inspected, it got a notice of it. And so it was able to swap the industrial silicone for medical silicone. So one of the big changes is from now on, unannounced inspections. The inspectors will just turn up and look at what's happening in that plant. That's one big change. Another big change, another scandal, was that women, what was bad enough knowing there were problems, but women didn't even know what kind of implant they'd had. They didn't know whether it was a PIP implant or something else. So the law is going to be changed, and there'll now be a unique identifier on each implant. So we will know from looking at the implant, and everybody who has an implant will get a card giving them a unique identifier and giving them a lot more information on that implant. And the clinic will be obliged to keep detailed records as well. So we won't have people wondering, did I have that implant? And if there is a recall, we can quickly identify people.
Given what you're saying, do you think a scandal on the scale of the PIP scandal would have been avoided if these proposals had been law back then?
Well, you can never stop fraud, but the point of regulation is to make it easier to detect fraud and to deter people from committing fraud. And I think the kind of measures that we're going to bring into place will change things and will make it much more difficult for fraudsters.
And just explain on the monitoring side of things, who will carry out that monitoring? And you say that the inspections will be unannounced in future. How important is that an important element of this?
Well, it is very important because companies will know to be on their toes, and that any time somebody can come in and see what they're doing. In terms of monitoring, there's monitoring by people knowing the implant, the clinics keeping records, and importantly, a European database is going to be created to pick up side effects. Because at the moment, I spoke to a surgeon this week, and he told me that at the moment, there's no place to record side effects of implants. Now, we have a big European database for side effects for medicines, so we're going to collect the data on implants. So, researchers and doctors can have a look and find out, hang on a minute, there's a doctor in France who's got problems with these implants, there's one in Sweden, oh I see, there's a patent developing, there's a problem, we can do something about it.
And what about for things other than breast implants? How broad is this new proposed legislation? And we must emphasise it's still got several stages to go, but it covers much more than just breast implants, isn't it?
Yeah, well, one big change is that for the first time, cosmetic implants are included. In the past, things that were cosmetic surgery weren't covered by the law. So, for example, dermal fillers, there's a big debate about the numbers of dermal fillers on the market in Europe. In the United States, where these kind of devices have to be authorised on the market, there's about 14 fillers on the market. In Europe, in the UK, there's nearly 200. This was a big concern for the UK government's own investigator, Sir Bruce Key, when he looked at the problems in the UK, and now for the first time, those fillers will be included as well.
And on the subject of cosmetic surgery, you at previous stages have called for a ban on the advertising of cosmetic surgery. Is that in these proposals? Is that going to go ahead? And if not, will there be any further controls on the way adverts are placed?
Well, the Parliament didn't agree. I called for a ban on advertising of cosmetic surgery. We have a ban actually on the advertising of prescription medicines. When I looked into this, I found that clinics advertise cosmetic surgery as if it's something very minor. For example, with breast surgery, they advertise how to get a loan to finance it. They didn't warn women that actually if you have an implant at 33, which is the average age, you probably have to have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 more in your whole lifetime. So I think the way it's irresponsible advertising. So I hope the British government will address this now. It's not going to get done at European level, but the UK government could certainly do something about it and put in place at least a code of practice, minimum standards, and actually make the clinics do honest advertising with information about side effects and proper consent procedures.
And just finally, we mentioned that this is the vote at a committee level. This will now be voted by the whole European Parliament. Are you confident that in the coming months you'll get the support of MEPs here across the board?
Yes, well, of course, we have to get agreement of governments as well. As every law, governments and MEPs have to agree it. But there's a broad consensus that something has to change. There's some wrangling about details, but we've had the hip implant, we've had the whole issue of hip implants as well. It's not just cosmetic, it's hip implants. Everybody knows that things have to be tightened up, and that's what this new law will do, and I'm pretty convinced we'll get this new law in place before Christmas, and so we get it onto statute book before the European elections.